So I bought another set of a dozen various sizes, and I bought a stand for them. The bottom one moves around, the top one doesn't. Now, I would do this with American brushes or European brushes or anybody's brushes, but they don't come with these little loops on the end. So you can hang them up. See, this is something that's done in Asia, and it's very clever. It gives you a nice way to save everything. Now, I haven't washed the brushes yet. I just unpacked them yesterday and just assembled this very limited assembly. And so that's all good to go. Let me move this over here. I'll be using my Sennelier. Whoops. Let me move this back. We'll just reorganize here. I'll be using my Sennelier watercolor paints in the tube. I haven't used this yet. I use the tabs, the buttons, whatever they're called anymore. This is 12 colors, and here they are on the side. And it's the primary browns and green, primary, secondary browns and greens. Okay, and I have used them before. I gave them away. I thought I was never going to do them again, and yeah, well, I was wrong. I'm wrong on a lot of these things. This comes in a lovely heavy-duty plastic case, has a palette, which I won't be using because I use porcelain plate. These are the colors. I'm going to be sticking with a limited palette when I get there. And I'm going to be using a new paper I saw somebody else using for watercolor. It's a mineral paper from Yasutomo. It's made in Korea, sold out of California, and in this country at any rate. And this is 160 pounds, which is the heavier of the paper. The other is 100 pounds, but I wanted to have the heavier paper just in case. One never knows. Now, the deal with this is you cannot use oil-based products on it. The other is that it doesn't absorb. So everything you do dries on top of the paper. So I'm not sure how this is going to work. It'll be an experiment. If it doesn't work, it goes out of the trash. This is a thing that is said about Chinese and Japanese and sumi painting, whatever, however we wish to describe it, is that you make one mistake, it goes in the trash. Okay. I have no problem with that. I pretty much do that anyway. If it's not good, I don't need to hold on to it. It's been a lovely experiment. It was an exercise, and that's what I'm looking at. Now, I would like it to be perfect because I am going to be doing this portrait of Renard. I just did one on this paper in pan pastel, and I will say this about doing that in pan pastel. I don't like this paper from pan pastel, and probably not for pastels either, because you cannot layer a lot of colors. There comes a point where you're just rubbing out and you can't build up. So it's okay for this lovely piece that I did. That's about as deep as I could get with the colors, unless I used totally different darker colors. It moved very nicely. It was very interesting. But as I said, there is no tooth, so there's a limit to how much you can build up. So it's better than a Bristol paper, but not as good as my watercolor paper or other people's sandpapers or pastel papers. But this is my baby. My baby passed away on January 23rd. He was 15 and a half years old, we think. He came to my backyard when I was living in Georgia. He'd, according to neighbors, been hanging around for a couple of days. Somebody deserted him. And the vet thought he was about 4 years old. He weighed 5.5 pounds. And, underfed, wormed, everything. He had heartworms. It was really wrong. But my little darling had a happy life. He gave me 11 and a half. He gave me 11 and a half wonderful years. And his will always be precious. And, you know, God sent him to me. You think what you want to think. Everybody has their own beliefs. I wanted a dog, sort of, kind of. And all I envisioned was a little dog running around with a curly red tail. Didn't see his face, but I saw that curly red tail. And there he was one day, not long after that, a couple of months. And there was this beautiful dog who decided he was going to live with me because he didn't have a home anymore. Anyway, this is my darling. And I'm going to do a quick sketch. Let me make sure that you can see all of this. You know, I don't quite understand. I have a great difficulty in keeping everything straight so you can see it straight, but here we go. Now, get my pencil. This is my Ticonderoga, Dixon Ticonderoga pencil, number 2, soft pencil. It's a number 2 HB. Was manufactured originally in Jersey City. I can't remember where they manufacture it now. But this was the pencil I learned to draw on with. This is the pencil that we all took to school. Okay. We'll need... Now this is a student grade Sennelier, but it's every bit as wonderful as the professional. And I didn't want to invest in the professional because, well, it's expensive. But not that this was especially cheap. But even with this, the Sennelier flows beautifully. Now this is an orange. There we go. And this is Le Petit Aquarelle. And let me take the red, if I can open it up. Oh. I'm telling you, these things are factory sealed. Well, I'll have to try something else for a moment. I'll use, see if this one will open for me, the Rose Permanent. There we go, this one will open. I'm going to have to bring up one of those plastic sheets you use for opening jars. And a touch of the yellow. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe not a touch of the yellow. This could be an issue for me. Let me take the white as well. I can just lighten the orange with the white. And I don't know how much like this is the primary blue, which also may not be what I'm using. Ah, there we go. The lid came off. Very good. I'm going to blend that to make shadows and shades. Later on I'll bring out the green that I'm using for the grass. And of course need a touch of the black, which I'll mix with the blue. Ooh, the black comes off easily. Okay. For the eyes and the nose. Okay. Now let's put this aside. Won't be necessarily able to see. Oh, I'm getting things on the paper here. This is a delicate paper, evidently. Okay. I'll be doing splatter and background and things for it too, so I'm not worried about that. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do is start with the dry palette at the moment, and I have my bowl. I really like using this bowl as opposed to a jar because I rest it this way, and it seems to have less impact on the brush and the bristles. Okay, now this is the black straight out of the tube. Of course, it's diluted. The same with the nose. So that's the, I apologize, it's not black, it's Payne's Gray. I've forgotten I don't have a black in the set. Not that it matters. Okay, now take the blue, touch of the blue, touch of the Payne's Gray, blend that up. It's still wet. And come back over here a bit. Lift it. It looks like I'm going to be using white to cover up that one spot. Okay. There we go. Now, I'm going to go somewhere in the inner depths here. Put that there. I don't know necessarily what any of these brushes are specifically, but I'm going to take this nice large brush that reminds me of a mop brush, but it's not. And when it's dry, it fluffs out a lot like this, but it's not. So we just get that wet. And I don't normally work wet on wet for the entire project. I normally do wet on wet for a small area. But going over the border is so that I will stay away from the border, but I will not create a hard edge, except over here I want a hard edge. So we'll see if that works. Now, when you're holding the brush, you should be holding it this way. 2 fingers behind, a thumb over, 2 fingers in the foreground. And it's a lighter touch, a looser touch, and I can use that. As I said, I've got a lot to learn. I've done it before, and I need to relearn what I knew before. Was not an expert, but I invite you to help me, follow along with me as I do learn. Look at that, I've got the blue over there. Okay. Oops, I lost my picture. I need to look at his shadows. I have to pay attention to my reference photo. Okay. And let me... Okay, now I'm going to hang it back up so it can dry because I'm not using this again. In case I need to. Alrighty. And I'm not... This paper isn't going to dry that quickly because it isn't absorbent. It's mineral. Okay, now I want to take... Let's see. Let's try this one. This is a lovely brush. It's got a pretty cap in the ferrule. I'm nothing on this in English or Chinese. I'm going to take a touch of the Payne's Gray, touch of the red, touch of the orange, make a sort of a brown. Again, I'm not sure which way I'm going with this. If this is a total flop, it's okay. You can learn from my mistakes. I have a witness to my, I'm good with having a witness to my mistakes. I'm interested in seeing what the drying time is for this. I maybe use, perhaps wet on wet doesn't work for this. I'm holding too tight. And then my hand gets more tired. And let's go up here. Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see. Now, I want to bring in the red and the orange. Whoops. No more water. What I like about Sennelier and Winsor Newton, I haven't tried a lot of other tube paints, is that they flow beautifully. I think for this paper, wet on wet is not a good choice. I'm plowing through with it, that's fine, but I think that's not a good choice. Because all these brushes, I should practice painting with cosmetic brushes instead. They tend not to lose their hairs. What do we think? Seeing how this works. It's very, very, very wet. Obviously, as I said, wet on wet is not the way to go. I'm going to take this Payne's Gray and blue an orange and make a brown. I'm just going to be dipping this in here. And since this paper doesn't absorb, I'm not going to try the technique where you use salt to create textures. Okay. Whoops. Now, I've only ever seen one person doing any painting on this paper. And she was working predominantly wet on dry. So, and I was a little heavier with the pencil so that you could see my drawing. I normally would have kept it drier. But if I want to do this technique, I'm going to do it on watercolor paper after I've done this. Not immediately after, but and this is adorable and loose and all this good stuff, but that essentially it dries by way of water evaporating. Okay, I can't do anything else now. I have to let it dry. Let me clean my brush. Rinse it off. Hang it up. I lost a brush somewhere. Where in the world did I lose a brush? Somewhere in all of this, I lost a brush. Oh well, I'll figure out what I did. I thought I had 4 brushes. I guess it's more. Alrighty, so I'm going to let this rest. It could take a couple of hours to dry. I don't really want to mess with it too much. Let me just experiment. I mean, I can go over the whole thing and then go back over it again, maybe. I can do this. Let me try this. I can see where some of it is drying. Okay. Let me try this. Okay, and I can come back into it again then. Quicker. More quickly? More quickly. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's in the bathroom. Maybe I hallucinated. This is the brush I was using. I'll just go back to this brush. And back to the Payne's gray and the blue. Do the eyes. Keeping in mind, this is all an experiment. Okay, and I'm going to come back over with that brown mixture I made from all the colors. The gray and the blue and the red and the yellow. And a little more red. And a little more orange. Add a little more water. Giving it a hard edge in some of the, foreshadowing. Okay. Going back to watercolor paper after this. Dum da da dee da da dee da da dee. Orange and red. Bristle. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing this. I don't even know. I did. Okay. Well, not too happy with this. Wet on wood is not the way to go with this paper. So we're calling this where it is. And I'm going to let it dry. And I'll come back to it. Oops, I've got that bristle to get off of here. Okay. Okay. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let this dry. I'll come back to it and do touch-ups with it and see what I can do to make it look more like my puppy. And probably more like traditional watercolor. But I'm going to work on, after this, I'm working on watercolor paper. And I'm going to see what and probably work wood on dries more so. But I'm going to experiment. I mean, I like the possibilities of what you can do with wet on wet, and big time. And it's frequently used in Chinese and Japanese painting. And I really want to learn to use the water to paint. This is what the painting looks like. Now, let me bring in, oops. Yeah, this has been an interesting experiment, and I'm going to see it through. But gotta tell you, not my favorite paper. Not for the kind of work I intend to do. Watercolor paper is the best paper for watercolor art. It's like, that's it. That's all there is to it. I think I'm going to hold this aside, and perhaps if I feel like playing with inks at some point, I may try it with ink. Acrylic ink, not alcohol-based ink. Yeah, you know, I'm just moving the paint around on this surface, and I can wipe up, and I can also wash away, evidently. Just pushes everything away and around. And lifts it up. Yeah, this is not going to be my paper. No. Because I am trying to keep the image fun, but let me go back in here with black and the blue with okay, so we are now going to wait and let this dry because it's not gorgeous, so that I can remove the masking fluid. But the other thing I'm going to do is soak up the red and the yellow and go splatter. You can very absolutely splatter. It's no problem. And let's okay, I am going to try to carefully remove the mask. I just want to make sure that I don't have any wet paint. And we'll turn this into a pen and wash. I thank you for joining me. I had fun experimenting. I always have fun creating, but I did have fun experimenting, trying to work out my camera angle here, and it seems never to be just right. I'm going to take a photo. I thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of my work, more of my future work, click that bell and subscribe so you can see what's coming up when it comes up. This isn't too terribly awful. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of cute. And you can see on the other side, so we go the other side, you really can't see through it. Now, you probably could see through it on the 100 pound, but this is the 160. Okay.